What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 132 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Tuesday, December 23rd, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malum. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball as the New York Mets with yet another move this offseason. On Monday, they sent former NL batting title winner Jeff McNeil to the Athletics in exchange for minor league pitcher Yordan Rodriguez. And yet another move by the Mets, sending a longtime veteran away, shipping him away after a tough 2025 for this organization. And Jeff McNeil was just the latest to go. It was the right time for Jeff McNeil to walk out the door at the age of 33. You saw his play really dip the last couple of years, but this is a guy who exceeded all expectations from when he came up from the minors back in 2018. A guy who in 4 of his first 5 seasons had a batting average over 300. I know a couple of those seasons are a little bit skewed with 63 games, just 63 games in 2018, and then the COVID season, only 52 games played in 2020. But this guy in 2022 then proved doubters wrong once again, batted .326, wins the NL batting title in a year where it wasn't really a sexy kind of player, and when he would get his bat to ball skills going, it was not the long ball, only 9 home runs that year. But he would walk, he would hit RBIs, he would get clutch hits, he would hit the ball around, and really that's all you wanted in Jeff McNeil, plus the versatility that he had on defense. This is a guy who could play 5 different positions, move all around, and he really did a good job of that in his 8 seasons with New York. So right now, the focus for the Mets is not on guys like Jeff McNeil. They don't really look for those contact guys right now, and plus the drama that went on in the Mets clubhouse did not help Jeff McNeil's case of staying with the New York Mets. And really, the stories coming out about him and Francisco Lindor not agreeing, Brandon Nimmo was also involved in that. Just really a lot of drama in the Mets clubhouse. And Jeff McNeil, we've seen Jeff McNeil on the field, animated always, and you can tell that that's a guy who was definitely getting involved in the altercations inside the Mets clubhouse last year. The arguments, everything you like. It's just what happened with this Mets team a season ago, and they're trying to flip the script and completely press the reset button on that roster, minus a few guys. And when you look at it, the Mets now lose McNeil, but they still have so much depth in the infield. And when you look at the young guys that they're still deciding what's going to happen with them, Mark Vientos being one of them, Ronnie Mauricio as well, who had a really solid year a season ago, just did not get enough playing time, and consistent playing time was what Ronnie Mauricio needed, did not get that. Luis Angel Acuna went down to the minors at points last year because he was not getting the same amount of playing time that he deserved in this Mets lineup, and that's just what it was for the Mets a season ago. So they could not keep Jeff McNeil and allow him to then take up another spot of infield depth. I know the versatility would have been huge, and the Mets looked at it and said maybe he could play in the outfield, but this is a guy who had a lot of regression on defense, especially a season ago. You saw that when he went to center field, when the Mets needed him so they can play some other guys at second base. Vientos was hot, Beatty was hot as well, so you're playing each of them at second and third base, and you don't have room for Jeff McNeil in the infield, so you put him in the outfield. And you saw some struggles in center field, some misplayed balls, just not a great defender out there. You need more reliable defenders, especially in center field where the long ball is going a lot. So the Mets lose another guy this offseason who's been a Met for a long time. This one hurts a little bit for some Met fans who have really come to love what Jeff McNeil was able to do for this team. Just a small ball type of player, very versatile, could play wherever you needed him. And Jeff McNeil gets sent to the Athletics, where he joins a team that did pretty solid a season ago, 76-86 record. They end up sending back a minor league pitcher, but they add Jeff McNeil and his versatility to a very strong lineup that they continue to have from last year. So we'll see what happens, but Jeff McNeil, no longer a New York Met. Add him to the list. Diaz, Alonso, Nimmo, now Jeff McNeil. on his way to the Athletics. Shifting things to football, as both New York teams were in action this weekend, we'll start things out at MetLife Stadium as the New York Giants hosted the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday, and Minnesota wins it 16-13. They hand the Giants their 9th loss in a row, and this one was ugly from the offensive point of view. You actually got great contributions from the defense. If you were the Giants, you also got a touchdown on defense. That was your only touchdown of the day on a fumble recovery by the Giants. And when you look at this game for Minnesota, they also lost their quarterback throughout the game. J.J. McCarthy dealt with a hand injury, and Max Brosmer came into the game. He was 7 of 9 passing, 52 passing yards, no touchdowns, no picks, but did a solid enough job of moving the ball around, especially to one Justin Jefferson, who you finally saw a good game from him. 6 receptions, 85 yards, as well as 8 targets in the game. And when you look at it, the Giants on offense were abysmal. Everywhere you look, they were really putrid. The run game, probably you would say, okay, they did solid enough there. Tyrone Tracy, 16 carries, 71 yards, no scores. Devin Singletary had 11 carries for 47 yards. Jackson Dart was nowhere to be found in the passing game. I don't know if it came down to Mike Kafka and the play calling that they were looking at, trying not to have Dart throw the ball too much and more so rely on the run game, keep themselves ahead of the sticks. But that didn't work at all in this game. He only threw 13 passes in this game for 33 passing yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. 5 sacks taken by Jackson Dart. And Jackson Dart's way better than that. Way better than that. You've seen glimpses this rookie year for Jackson Dart of what he can do as a passer and what he could do when he gets outside the pocket. Of course, while keeping himself protected, he cannot be held to just 13 passing attempts in a game. It just cannot happen. Mike Kafka needs to call better plays for Dart. And yes, they were going up against a very tough Minnesota defense. One of the top defenses in the NFL this season, even though they've dealt with a lot of injuries, especially to the secondary. And plus their offense has been putrid, so you don't really see it. More of the storylines are on the offense struggling up in Minnesota. But Minnesota's defense really solid. Jackson Dart has to have more than 33 passing yards, though. That's just abysmal stuff by the Giants, and they end up losing yet another game. They're only 2-5 on home field this season, but they're 2-13 on the year. They still hold the number 1 pick in this upcoming draft. And when you look at it, it's going to come down to the wire because they have a tough game against the Las Vegas Raiders this weekend, and that's going to really tell the story of whether the Giants can handle a number 1 pick, or are they going to give it away in typical Jets type of fashion. That's just what it's going to come down to, and you would think the Giants probably going to win this game because that's just typical of the Giants to screw things up. They have the number 1 pick in their hands, and they're gonna blow it when they lose to, or they win against the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday. So just typical there of the Giants, and we'll see what happens. But make sure you tune in 4:05 on Sunday. Actually, don't tune in because that game's gonna be horrible. You may see some good glimpses of Jackson Dart in that game and this Giants offense, but really, that's not a game worth turning on. It's the Giants and the Raiders, the battle for the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, most likely. It takes place Sunday at 4:05. On the other side of New York, it's the New York Jets, who were also in action this weekend. They were down in the Bayou in New Orleans, taking on the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. And it was New Orleans who won it 29-6, completely trounced this Jets team, and the Jets fall to 3-12, continue to struggle, and you're just seeing so many weaknesses for this Jets team, whether it's defense one day, 29 points allowed to the New Orleans Saints, and I know New Orleans is red hot right now, 3rd straight win, and they've beaten a couple tough teams in Carolina and Tampa just before this. But 29 points against this New Orleans Saints offense that does not have Alvin Kamara. They traded Rashid Shaheed, so they don't really have the same type of deep threat I mean, it's not even close. They have Tyler Shuck at quarterback, a rookie quarterback, and he's just picking apart this Jets defense. The defense is broken in the end. They just have no answers for anybody. Any offense they go up against, especially the last three games against the Dolphins, Jaguars, and Saints, this defense has been putrid. And when you have a young quarterback on the other side of the ball in Brady Cook, who's trying to catch up into the game and get something going on offense. Although he's not done a great job as the Jets quarterback, he's actually been pretty bad recently, in my opinion. He's had some glimpses. Yeah, there's some good plays here and there, but he's not been great for what the Jets need right now. And that's points put up on the board. 10 points put up on the board against the Dolphins, 20 against the Jaguars, and just 6 this weekend against the New Orleans Saints. This Jets team is just brutal, and you really have to press the reset button on a lot of things this offseason when it comes to this defense. They already traded 2 of their top players, Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, at the trade deadline, but there's a lot more where that came from. There's a lot of guys on this defense that they're going to say goodbye to because they're just not playing up to the level that when they got them, they expected them to play at. And really, that's what it comes down to. The offense, you kind of go both ways because they're probably going to lose Breece Hall if they don't re-sign him, if they don't really put in an effort for him. He's going to say, see you later. I'm not going to stay with a 3-12 team or whatever they're going to be, probably 3-14 to end the year with the tough games coming up against the Patriots and the Bills. So 3-14, when you look at it, Breece Hall saying, see you later. I'm going somewhere else where I can win, where I can be a lot better used, as well as an impactful player on the offensive side of the ball. They barely use Breece Hall, and that's just really a gut punch to Breece Hall and what he's been able to do in the first couple of years of his career for the Jets to, at this point now, with a young rookie quarterback in Brady Cook, who really doesn't know what he's doing back there just yet. And Breece Hall barely gets the ball in these games, and that's just it's a gut punch for Breece Hall, and he should rightfully so say see you later this offseason. And some team's going to come up and grab him, whether it's through a smaller deal. The Jets are going to try and keep him, you would think, but you never know. And I think in the end, Breece Hall is definitely underused by this Jets offense, and you're seeing that especially in the last couple of games. So the Jets end up going into this game against the New England Patriots on the weekend, coming off of this horrible loss to New Orleans, the horrible loss to Jacksonville, the horrible loss to Miami, and they're back home taking on New England. This one will be pretty ugly, it looks like, as New England still has a lot to fight for, both in the division with the Buffalo Bills closing in on them, as well as the number 1 seed in the AFC with the Broncos losing last week to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in on Sunday, 1 o'clock, as the Jets host the Patriots at MetLife Stadium. Let's shift things to basketball as the New York Knicks were in action this weekend. It started on Friday as they hosted the Philadelphia 76ers at Madison Square Garden. A tough game for the Knicks as they fall 116 to 107. It was the second game of a back-to-back the night before. They took on the Indiana Pacers and won on Jalen Brunson's late three-pointer with just a couple of seconds left on the clock. They win that game 114 to 113, and you really see them fall flat the next night as Philly had everything that they needed to. Tyrese Maxey had 30 in this game. VJ Edgecombe had 23, and just the second time the Knicks have lost at Madison Square Garden this season. The other time was against the Orlando Magic just a couple of weeks ago. And when you look at it, Philly was the better team in this game. The Knicks just struggled from the field as well. Mitchell Robinson did have an impact down low, 16 rebounds in this game, and Karl Anthony Towns was the leading scorer with 22 for the Knicks. So they kind of forget about it because it is the second game of a back-to-back. And yes, the Knicks are very good at home this year, but they just fell flat in that game on Friday. But then you take a couple of days and you go to Sunday, where the Knicks took on the Miami Heat, who are a tough team to play against. And it was not easy in this game, but the Knicks offense was rolling, especially from their star player in Jalen Brunson. A season-high 47 points in this game. A very, very great performance by Brunson and a vintage performance by the Knicks star point guard. Josh Hart also had an impact in this game, 10 rebounds, and he was very impactful in this game. When you look at it, the Knicks end up winning it by 7, but they could have won it by a lot more. They shot 55% from the field, 53% from beyond the arc, and 23 pointers in this game. They were red hot shooting, had a couple of times where they could have even added more to this lead, and they end up winning it by just 7, but Jalen Brunson was really the star of the show. Mikal Bridges also had a strong game, 24 points in this game with 4 assists and a couple of rebounds. Brunson, like I mentioned, just red hot in this game, 47 points, 15 of 26 shooting with 8 assists. He had 6 3-pointers. Just a great game by him, and Mikal Bridges also had 6 3-pointers in the game. So the Knicks offense continues to roll. They continue to find ways to get these starters rolling. The bench did not have a phenomenal game in this game, but Jordan Clarkson does what he does. 10 points in 18 minutes. That's what you're looking for from Clarkson. And Mitchell Robinson, I mentioned him, just a very good performance once again. 9 points with 7 rebounds coming off the bench, as well as a block. So Mitchell Robinson, the defense has been pretty strong. The Knicks have a couple of guys that are dealing with injuries, but Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns really taking things into their hands down low, and they've done a great job as long as they've been on the court together. Mitchell Robinson, a really big impact for the Knicks so far this season. They're going to probably need him again tonight, although it could be a long day for the New York Knicks as they have a couple of guys out for this game. Tonight, 8 o'clock start out in Minnesota as they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Minnesota, with all the Knicks injuries, comes into this game as 7.5-point favorites, total sitting at 229.5. Almost seems like a giveaway game for the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson out with an ankle injury. OG Anunoby out with an ankle injury. Deuce McBride out with an ankle injury. Landry Shamet still out, as well as Gershon Yabusele is out for this game due to an illness. So the Knicks have barely anybody going tonight against Minnesota. Still have Karl Anthony Towns in his return once again to the city of Minnesota, where he spent a lot of seasons with the T-Wolves. He's looking for a big game tonight, and they're going to need him because they do not have the scoring of Jalen Brunson, do not have the scoring of OG Anunoby, and we'll see what happens. Can it be the Mikal Bridges game, or can it be the Karl Anthony Towns game? We'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in tonight. An 8 o'clock start. The Knicks take on the T-Wolves up in Minnesota. Let's finish things off today in the world of college basketball as St. John's went down to Atlanta this weekend for the CBS Sports Classic to take on the Kentucky Wildcats on Saturday. And St. John's just cannot catch a break when it comes to playing against tough opponents, tougher opponents. They lose another bad game, and it's a 78-66 win for the Kentucky Wildcats to move to 8-4 on the year. St. John's falls to 7-4 on the year, and this one just solely came down to the offensive end and the inability to score for this Red Storm team. They shot 17 of 51 from the field. That's 33%. And 5 of 19 from beyond the arc. That's 26%. Kentucky shot 46% from the field. Did not have their greatest game offensively, but what they were able to do on the defensive side of the ball was take their big men, stuff them down low, and really take St. John's out of the paint, forced them to shoot a lot, and Kentucky won this game solely because they were much bigger, much tougher. That's exactly what they needed in this game, and they took advantage of it. Plenty of work down low. They out-rebounded St. John's 39-28, including 16 offensive rebounds, 7 blocks in this game combined. Kentucky turned the ball over a little bit more than St. John's did, 16 turnovers in the game. However, when you look at it, points in the paint, 30-20. You look at fast break points, 13-2. They got out in transition. They got really great work down low from their bigs, and Kentucky wins a huge game with a couple of great returners in Quaitons as well as Lowe, who both came back in this game. Lowe was back for a little bit, but was really struggling due to injury. He was iffy, especially in this game where he went out for a little bit after really raising his shoulder and got in a lot of pain because of it. Then you had Quaitons, who comes in and just had a phenomenal game. He came off the bench because they really couldn't trust him because he has not been fully healthy. But Jaden Quaitons in this game, had 10 points, 5 of 7 shooting with 8 rebounds in just 17 minutes. I mean, that's just ridiculous stuff by the big. He had 5 offensive rebounds as well in this game. So once he came into the game, it was all over from there down low. St. John's really struggled. Like I said, their bigs did have double-digit points. When you look at Zuby Ejiofor, 12 points. Bryce Hopkins, 13 points. But you look at their shooting, 3 of 11 was Zuby Ejiofor, and 4 of 11 was Bryce Hopkins. They could not hit shots from three-point land. They had 1 3-pointer each, and that was it. When you look at the rebounds even, those guys rack up plenty of rebounds every single game. Zuby Ejiofor had 5 rebounds in this game. Bryce Hopkins had 3 rebounds in this game. Dylan Mitchell, who grabs a ton of boards, he came off the bench 29 minutes. He only had 3 rebounds. I mean, Kentucky completely dominated the boards, and they were all over the bigs down low for St. John's. And St. John's has dealt with a very tough stretch during non-conference play. That's something that probably will gear them up for the better games in conference when you go up against the tough teams in UConn, and Villanova's playing a lot better this year, and you have a couple of more opponents that are going to be tough against you. St. John's has to be ready for those games, and they have been really poor against the non-conference opponents. Of course, they get a couple of gimmies here and there, and that includes tonight's game as Harvard comes to town to take on St. John's at Carnesecca. It's a 6 o'clock start at Carnesecca Arena, and St. John's comes into this game as 25.5-point favorites, total sitting at 145.5. This game is actually being played on FS1, so that's where you can watch it. St. John's has to bounce back after that loss to Kentucky. Probably looking to just really run up the score here on Harvard. And really, when you look at it, it's all eyes on Big East play, because coming up after this game against Harvard, they go on New Year's Eve up to D.C., or down to D.C., I should say, to take on Georgetown. It's going to be a great game on New Year's Eve, and St. John's has a tough schedule ahead of them in Big East play. They have to bounce back after another tough loss in non-conference play to the Kentucky Wildcats. But that will do it for episode 132 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malama. Thanks for watching. No episode this weekend. Happy holidays, and talk to you all next week.